On this episode, we talk about MSP and VMS fees. Anything you wanted to know about those fees, where it fits in your pay package, we're going to talk about it today. Atlas All Access starts now. All right. Adam, welcome back.
Welcome.
And we've got a new face with us today, Joel Kozisek.
Hello.
Joel, you client manager here at Atlas. Give me just a quick synopsis of the hospitals that you provide service to.
I do Northern California Kaiser hospitals. I do a lot of hospitals in the Pacific Northwest, Providence hospitals, some Seattle area, Alaska, quite a bit in Florida, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of all over the place.
So a lot of West Coast.
A lot of West Coast. Once you get to the center of the country, mm-hmm. I start to dwindle a little bit, but along the outskirts, that's where you'll find me.
That's you. So then what would you say your percentage of, at least nurses that you present to your jobs, what percentage of those are vendor managed or managed service provider jobs?
Probably close to 90%.
Yep. That's just the industry.
That is.
Yeah, that's changed, and that's changed a lot over the past, I'd say even 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've talked about this before, you and I, and you know, I would say even the 4.5, almost 5 years I've been here,
yes,
it's getting more and more heavy and more dominant, you know, for some of the major players. So
right.
It's not going away.
It's not going away anytime soon. So, and that's always been our philosophy is embrace it.
Yeah.
We're never going to lose a nurse because we won't pay the VMS fee or the MSP fee or whatever because we think we're too good for that or we think we can go around them or whatever. Quite honestly, it's too much work. Pay the 5%, the 6%, whatever it is, and have the job so the nurse can go to that location.
That's correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about fees because it's something that it creeps up every year, right? Just a little bit maybe, and without naming names or anything like that, because we work with all of them, and all of them have their pluses, all of them have their minuses, just like anything else. But let's talk about the fees and where those fees fit into a pay package.
Yep, absolutely. You know, on the recruiter side, I mean, in a pay package, there's usually a flat fee. And, you know, when I'm getting information from, you know, a client manager or looking at a job, I'm not necessarily looking at a fee. It's most of the time it's built in. But in the same sense, you know, getting information from a client manager, sometimes they will say, you know, fee is already taken out, you know, or fee, sometimes, you know, they really want a nurse and so they'll take the fee out to get some extra people in there. But, you know, I would say most of the time those are a percentage, like Rich said, you know, 4%, 3%, up to 6%. There are other vendors that take a straight dollar amount off of every deal per hour. So just putting a round number of, you know, a bill rate out there is $60. You know, they could be taking 4%, which my math is horrible on that, but is probably, you know, $2-3 an hour. Or, you know, on that $60 bill rate, a VMS or MSP might be taking $8 straight off the top. And so really, instead of having a $60 bill rate, I'm breaking down a pay package of $52 now.
Right. Yeah, and from the client manager standpoint, your math's not that bad because $60, 5% would be $3. So not bad at all.
I almost asked our friend, our electric friend here, if she could tell us. But.
So for me, it is something that it's either going to come straight off the top. So if it's $60 bill rate, $3 comes out, and then the rest of the money is there for you to build your pay package off of. Sometimes they do it where, you're right, but it takes communication. Yes, it's a 5%, but we're taking that out, so here's the actual bill rate with that fee already out. So they know that that's just getting billed in. We also have some vendors that it's a much smaller percentage, but then there's an annual fee that goes along with it. So there's lots of ways for them to be able to get their money. It's just, you got to make sure you know where it's coming from to make sure you know what you're doing when you build your pay packages.
How important is that when you are talking to a nurse now that they understand that maybe this is, and I'll make up just VMS, XYZ VMS, right?
Yep.
So you say, I'm talking to a nurse, hey, I want to go to Seattle, whatever hospital, this is a VMS, do you tell them ahead of time? You're like, hey, you know what? This is XYZ VMS. They're going to charge you 5%. So just figure that on with your pay package, right? That's part of the whole deal.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think that would be a common question that would come up. I think the question where that comes up is the seasoned traveler that is super knowledgeable about the industry.
Sure.
And they're getting pitched one pay package from somebody. They're getting pitched a pay package from me. We're $50 off. We're trying to figure out where that $50 is. It could be in our overhead cost as a company.
Sure.
It could be in a VMS fee. It could be insurance cost. It can be a lot of different things. So then you start making them more knowledgeable of how this really works, the things that really go into a pay package. There's other people that are just like, give me the bottom line.
Sure.
They could care less what we do behind the scenes or where that goes.
They know they just want to make $2,000 a week or whatever it is, and you get there and let's go.
So, but it's part of the education piece of if a traveler out there wants to know that, I'll give them that information. Hey, let's go to this place. The VMS, the bill rate's better. The VMS fee's lower. Which makes the bill rate better, and those kind of things. Like I'll share that information,
which in the end would make your pay package better, right?
Which would make your pay package better. So it isn't something a first-time traveler that I'm going to be like, hey, so let's break it down, percentage dollar by dollar on where this thing is going. But I'll tell you, a lot of my business is referral business, and with that referral business, you get a lot of seasoned travelers that have worked for different companies, and they will be on there. So I think the more important question that comes up is, if I work for big company A that also has the direct contract with the hospital and is the MSP or the VMS.
Correct.
Why would I come work with Atlas?
Right.
And come work with you? And the easy answer to that is always big company A is traded on the stock market,
right,
and has investors that they have to pay. Even with that fee, I am going to usually be competitive in the ballpark, even with that fee, because they are holding more money back for their investors and those people behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, and I think that it goes beyond even the publicly traded ones. It goes to the ones that are owned by a private equity firm too, right?
Yes.
They're the ones that are, and obviously this isn't us, and so I can't speak to this at all, but it seems to me like in general in business, when a private equity firm owns a company, the company's main objective is to make the private equity firm money.
Yes.
Right? And same with publicly traded companies. The publicly traded companies have a responsibility back to their investors.
Yes.
And so that's where their main responsibility is, because if their stock price goes whoop, then everything else goes with it, right? So, and that's just, you're right. I mean, that's a really good example. There are a lot of very large companies out there in our industry that also run an MSP or own the VMS, right? Or own the VMS platform. And it's important to ask those questions. Like, as you're you're working through your travel life, find out who owns whatever it is, right? If you've never heard of ShiftWise before, ask more questions about it, right? Ask about why. Why do they use this? Who owns them? Look it up. The information's all on the internet, right? It's a pretty magical place. It's all right there. It's all right there. And Wikipedia isn't always right. It's 95% right.
Yep.
So then from a client manager point of view, as you go through your day and you're submitting candidates and stuff, I assume you're having these conversations then with the recruiters. But when you're making new calls, Adam comes to you and says, I need a job in Seattle, and they want to go to this specific hospital, and we don't have that contract, right? And so talk about how does that work for you? Talk through that process.
Yeah, so with contracts that we don't currently have, but we have interested parties that are looking to go there, obviously we want to have our hands on everything. So we want to be able to get into it. Our best bet is to try to work directly with the hospital, just because if I'm talking to you, we're going to get things done quicker than if I talk to you and then you have to talk to Adam and then Adam has to go talk to somebody else.
Right.
So that's always our preferred method. If that doesn't work and they say, no, hey, we are working with VMS XYZ or we're in this MSP, then typically they're not going to stray from that. It's very rare that you see somebody that is tied into an MSP or a VMS that is going to say, we do this, but we like you guys, so we're going to do this on the side.
Right.
So in that instance, then we really have to work with our partnerships with the VMSs and the MSP people to see about what we can do. Sometimes it's as easy as, I have this candidate, you have this contract, great, we need that person, let's get them in, sign the contract, we're good to go. Sometimes it's a lengthier process, RFPs, hey, it's going to be 6 to 8 months before we allow other companies into our pool. At that time, you can propose to come in. So.
Yeah, and I think I want to make one thing abundantly clear is, and I've said this multiple times, like I value every MSP and VMS relationship that we have, right? Without those partners that to us, we're not here, right? As much as every piece of the puzzle is important, so that's, I just think it's important for our nurses to understand, as we're talking through pay, as we're talking through contracts, who's involved and how they're involved. So, and not necessarily always from the fee standpoint. You don't, like you said, you don't have to tell them,
Nope.
right? And some don't care.
Yeah.
Some don't want to know.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say in my recruiting career, there was a time where I was mad at the MSP and the VMS, and it's not fair. It's this and that, and like you said, at this point in time, you just embrace it. It is what it is. I think it's important for the travelers to know, I hope we stick up for the travelers as we move forward in this industry, because, travelers say, hey, I've done this for years and years and years, and, bill rates keep going down and this and that. I think it's important for them to understand that these VMSs are going into these hospitals and saying, hey, I can get you more candidates and I can do it for less money. And that's what's kind of driving the bill rates down a little bit, in my opinion. But I think over time it's going to correct itself, because nurses are just going to say, hey, I don't want to leave my house. Right. For that amount of money, and it'll correct itself over time. But I think that's where we're at.
It always does, yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to add on the direct versus VMS route. A lot of VMSs are getting to the point now, because it is such a dominant thing. Like I said, 90% of my business is through VMSs and MSPs, but they understand that, so they do take more of a hands-on approach with it, where it's not just, fine, I'll send this profile out to the hospital, maybe I'll let you hear something. They are much more involved, just as it would be with somebody that actually is at the hospital that I can say, here's the profile to the unit manager or whatever.
Right.
They are just as involved in that now. So it's getting a lot better.
Yeah.
They're aware of the situation.
it wasn't like that 7-10 years ago, right? And that has evolved a lot. And I think to the credit of the VMS and the MSP understanding the environment. There's an MSP here locally in Omaha that will regularly poll us on bill rates in the area. If they have an opportunity at a contract at XYZ hospital, and they'll go out 100 miles, 50 miles or whatever in a radius and say, hey, what are your bill rates around here? Give us an idea of what the rates are so they can be competitive in that area. That didn't used to happen. They used to go in and not them in particular, but they would go in and hit that lowball rate, right? I can get you this many candidates and I can save you this much money, and that didn't work. And so now it's way more like this now, where they will ask us ahead of time, or they'll work through the other hospitals they have in the area to find out how those rates are before they pitch to a new place.
Yep.
So awesome. Well, that was good. So if you do have any questions above and beyond this, I'm always available. You always have my email. Adam's always available too. Joel doesn't do much here, so we can we'll put his email on here. But Joel, thanks for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Great info.
Adam, again, as always, I appreciate it. So.
Yeah. I wish we had like Chris Madrigal on his T-Rex arms to like count the fingers of what the VMS fee is. That would have been awesome, right?
Yep. He would have sang a song about it at some point.
He probably would have.
He probably would have. So
Yeah.
we'll have him on next time.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next week.